From Brazil to Iran, thousands have gathered to show solidarity with U.S. protests over the killing of George Floyd. He died after a Minneapolis cop kneeled on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. The worldwide events echoed peaceful messages in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. In South America, hundreds of protesters came together outside Rio de Janeiro's state government building on May 31st. They demanded an end to police brutality against Black people within Rio's working-class neighborhoods, known as favelas. Iranians held a small demonstration outside the Swiss embassy. 2 Syrian artists painted a mural in memory of Floyd in war-torn Idlib. And in Israel, a group gathered to protest the killing of Iyad al-Halak, an autistic Palestinian man, as well as Floyd. In London, demonstrators marched through the city and around the U.S. Embassy, defying the UK's coronavirus restrictions that prohibit mass gatherings. Protesters kneeled in unison, chanting, "No justice, no peace," in Trafalgar Square. George Floyd! While the protests have mostly been peaceful, there have been some clashes with the police. And statues of slave traders were torn down across England. Protesters threw the statue of slave trader Edward Colston into the harbor on Sunday. In Belgium, city officials removed the statue of colonial King Leopold II. This came after protesters vandalized and torched the statue. Protests against police brutality also formed throughout Berlin. Demonstrators gathered around the U.S. Embassy chanting, "Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives..." In Italy, Black Lives Matter protesters surrounded the U.S. consulate. The country is only beginning to ease lockdown, so they appear to be social distancing. Across France, more than 23,000 protesters took to the streets. Demonstrators in Paris kneeled in silence for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in homage to Floyd. In Ireland, over 150 protesters gathered with signs reading "The world is watching" on June 1st. They gathered again the next day outside of the U.S. Embassy.
We're here about the injustice of Black lives being lost every day at the hands of the police authority in the United States, and not only in the United States. Racism is a global issue.
Protesters also called for an end to racism in Canada, where a recent police killing of a Black man and another death currently under investigation have inflamed tensions. These protests merged with calls for solidarity with U.S. demonstrators rallying against Floyd's death. In New Zealand, around 4,000 protesters took to the streets of Auckland for rallies and vigils on June 1st. Crowds gathered outside the U.S. consulate. In Australia, protesters called out systemic racism as well as Aboriginal deaths in police custody in their own country. Protests demanding justice and an end to racist policing are expected to continue this week.